This is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. I, of course, am your host, Mitch Lafon, on this Mitch Marathon Month madness. And today it is July 1st, 2019, and why not celebrate with, well, a Canadian artist? And so I bring you Danko Jones. Yes, I first saw Danko open for Guns N' Roses and Sebastian Bach back in, well, I'm trying to think, I guess that must have been 2008. Anyway, before I get over to Danko, let me just mention last night, June 30th, 2019, I had a chance to see death metal progressive band Voivod at the Montreal Jazz Festival. And, yeah, I know. Right? A death metal band at a jazz festival. It certainly was interesting. Halfway through the set, they brought out a 5-piece brass quintet and did a song, which was delightful. In fact, I tweeted it out on the at Mitch Lafon Twitter. And of course, while you are browsing on the internet, head over to loudtracks.com/Mitch to pick up your mostly delightful Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon t-shirt. I mean, who doesn't want one of those? So they're terrific. Every size available, by the way, and shipping now. So no waiting. But let us get over to Danko Jones. This interview is one of these that fell through the cracks. It was in the closet. I did it somewhere around, I guess, March. And his new album out, which was coming out in April, is called A Rock Supreme, and so you can go check that out now. But of course, when we did the interview, it was about to come out, so you'll hear some time references that are a little quirky. But the one thing I remember about this interview, and I don't want to sound all whiny, was I was sick as a dog. There was a period in late winter, early spring, where for about 3 weeks I was dizzy every day, and I don't know if it was about a vertigo, if it was fatigue or whatever it was, but I just remember when Danko phoned, my head was spinning. You spin me right round, baby, right round. Let me tell you, it was anyway. I'm not going to complain, but the interview, I think, turned out great. I'm old school. You just suck it up, buttercup, and you just got to do what you got to do and stop moaning. And of course, if you look at the Twitters and stuff, you didn't hear me moan about me being dizzy for 3 weeks, but there was that period. Anyway, that is why, by the way, I think if you look at a lot of these interviews that have fallen through the cracks here on Mitch Marathon Month, a lot of them are from about March because I just didn't get around to posting them. And there was also the switch over from being on that one network over to being completely independent. And while I'm independent, please mention, I'm going to mention the Mitch Minute at AOL.com, Mitch Minute at AOL.com. If you have any Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon jingles to send in, please do. But please remember, they should, in the lyrical content, somehow refer to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. It is not an opportunity just to plug a random song or a random bed music. It should be Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon stuff. If you want to support the show, it is also the PayPal address. So if you want to help out and keep this going, and do me a favor, head over to Apple Podcasts or Castbox or Spotify or TuneIn and subscribe. There's a lot of great content that goes out during the show or on the show, and not every rock site has a chance to pick it up. And again, I don't blame them because there's a lot of content, but sometimes some of my greatest interviews are being overlooked, and that's a shame. So you should please subscribe and get all the content. And when, again, and I said this last episode, when Mitch Marathon Month is done and I'm caught up with all these interviews that were done in February and March, we will go back to a regular schedule of once a week, twice a week. So bear with me as I plow these out. But anyway, let us get over to Canadian Danko Jones on this Canada Day 2019. And the new album is A Rock Supreme. And here is the one, the only, Danko Jones.
We are speaking with a Canadian rock survivor, Danko Jones. The new album, of course, is called Rock Supreme, out this April. And if you've been listening, Dance, Dance, Dance is the new single. Of course, there's also Burn in Hell. Both great songs. I'm more particular to Dance, Dance, Dance. First of all, it reminds me of Rat. And second of all, it's just a fun song. But Danko, pleasure to have you today.
Pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Talk to me a little bit first about this new album here, Rock Supreme, and putting it together with Garth Richardson, who, of course, is Jack Richardson's brother, and he, of course, gave us Alice Cooper. Talk to me about the songwriting process for this one and what you were trying to say.
We never try to say anything. We just trying to write a bunch of good-sounding rock tunes. In the process, whether it was with Garth or anyone else, is usually the same. I mean, it's us in our practice space back in Toronto, working on, riffs, turning riffs into full songs, and then taking them to, this time we took them to Garth Richardson. It was a great experience working with him, and he really helped make the songs blossom from where we brought them. And we had a hell of a time, and we just laughed through the whole production, and we came out with the Rock Supreme.
It's a great sounding album. So talk to me about being around since 1996. When you get into rock, you think that it's going to be this wonderful roller coaster ride with, pots of gold waiting for you at the end. What has sort of been the Danko Jones experience? Because I know you've said in print that you were sort of sold a false bill of goods. You looked at Nikki Sixx, you looked at Gene Simmons, and you thought, yeah, I'm in for that. And then you found out that there was a lot of smoke, mirrors, rats, and snakes along the way. Talk to me about your experience in the music business.
Well, as much as I'm a heavy metal kid, what tempered all that was when I got into punk rock. And it kind of grounds you a bit, So even though we did find out that there's lots of rats and snakes in the music industry, as much as we had already heard, to experience it firsthand is another thing. And even though we did, it was our grounding in punk rock that really helped us get through it all. Our world wasn't as shattered as maybe some other bands. Punk rock is the grounding kind of scene. No one's supposed to be, no one's supposed to think that they're better than anyone else. And so having come up through that scene, we were better able to handle a lot of the disappointments when we did decide to go into a hard rock stream. And yeah, there's all kinds of people you meet along the way, and we were a little more innocent, like all bands are when they start out, and you get a little more thicker skin and more calloused skin, and you trudge on if you want to keep going. That's what we did.
That's what you did. And I noticed that, your book, I've Got Something to Say, is in fact that sort of first line of the Misfits' Last Caress, which is interesting. So just talk to me, right? I mean, I'm assuming that's where you got it from, because that's as soon as I read it, I go, yeah, I've got something to say.
Yeah, it was something that I wanted people to, identify with. They've heard that. It's the opening salvo to the song. And as much as I am a Glenn Danzig fan, it kind of encapsulates me. If you know me, I'm kind of a big mouth.
Well, okay, so but let's get back to the career. I mean, you've been around since 1996, and here we are in 2019, and you've reached a level of success. Were there times where you looked at the career as it was progressing and you thought, wow, I'm not playing an arena yet. I'm not at this level yet, and I just need to pack it in. Were there moments of reflection where you just said, and then where was that sort of turning point where you just said, okay, I'm comfortable being Danko Jones and doing this my way and at this level, and here we go?
Well, after I got over the whole heavy metal kind of come down, my favorite bands, as I got into punk rock and noise rock and everything, they played, the biggest bands in that scene played like maybe 400 seaters, like little clubs. So that's where our heads were at. We just wanted to do that. I remember year one of of our band being in Toronto. The only thing we really wanted to do was tour America, open up for Rocket from the Crypt, and get produced by Doug Easley. Those were our goals. Those were our immediate goals. If we got that, and get on like a really cool American indie label. If we got all that, I would have just packed it in and said, "Hey, we did it. we did what we set out to do." And then we just kept going longer and longer. And, things, you adjust the goalposts, so to speak, as you go on. And we changed our sound. We went from a garage punk rock sound to a full-on hard rock sound. And we just decided to do what we did, the kind of music we listened to when we were kids, And we lost a lot of people along the way, but we gained a newer crowd. And so that's kind of what we did, and we never really, it never affected me when I realized, well, we're never going to be a stadium band, because we did pack in clubs, and we were able to tour. We left Toronto and we got into a van and we drove around North America, and it was a blast. And then we got to Europe and we did the same thing, and even more people came. So, you gotta be grateful for what happens, and just the fact that I didn't have to go back to my day job and I could still stay in the van and and tour around was success to me.
Yeah, and the day job, of course, for those who may not know, was working in a porn store in Toronto, right? I mean, the good old days of working in a porn store. So, you've been at this for 23 years. You look at new bands coming up. What is sort of what would be the advice you would give to them? Because you talk about in the old days, you would get a radio single, and that was the greatest moment in anybody's life. But we all know, especially in these days, radio means absolutely nothing. You look at sort of Sirius XM, and a lot of the stations are focused on past, it's the 80s on 8 and the 90s on 9 and the Hair Nation, and it's all about the old stuff. What is sort of the key now for a new band coming through to get some attention, to get noticed, to get in that van and play Europe and North America?
I really don't know. I mean, we've been at it for so long. We have an audience. We're trying to always gain, new listeners to us. I don't know. I do a podcast. I'm active on Instagram. I guess to be active on social media is one angle of it, but you don't necessarily end up getting your music heard. Another old-fashioned way is to just get in the van and hit the road and just play. It's tough. I don't really know, because all the streams that allowed for bands to be heard a lot of them have kind of come and gone, and I'm not really sure. Having said that, there's tons of new rock bands out there that are killing it, that are amazing, and it's just a matter of having your ear to the ground like it's always been. I've always had my ear to the ground, trying to find the new thing, because when I was a kid, when I heard all those bands, for the first time, it was like Christmas. The first time I heard Metallica, the first time I heard Motley Crue, the first time I heard Black Flag, it was a head twist. So I'm always trying to find the next new band for me to listen to kind of recapture that feeling. And I can list you like a dozen bands that are brand new out there doing it, that sound amazing, fresh, and they're killing it. If only people would hear them more, there'll be more rock fans. There's not rock music is an old type of music now, just kind of like how jazz was when I was growing up. Rock has settled into that category, and even more so gone underground. As pop music and rap music and EDM have taken over what people consider popular music. Rock and roll is just now underground music. It's almost outsider music, and I like that. I feel affiliated with that. I can feel a kinship to that, and I'm proud to now say that I play rock and roll music, this outsider music. I can name you a bunch of bands that play this outsider rock and roll music.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you about that. And you're very right. People always ask me, Mitch, hey, Gene Simmons says rock is dead, and it's like no, rock is sort of like the jazz, as you just put it. We had the jazz age in the 20s, and then we moved on to now. It's sort of a festival thing, and that's where rock is. It's.
But Gene Simmons, sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
Gene Simmons saying that rock is dead, and that made all the rounds. What people didn't realize is you're talking about a guy who lives in an ivory tower. How does he know what's going on in an underground form of music now? To consider rock and roll as like a real popular form of music, a la Katy Perry alongside Beyonce and Lady Gaga and Coldplay, is ridiculous. It's underground music. So up in his ivory tower, when he announces that rock is dead, from his vantage point, he can't see what's underground. So of course rock is dead to people like Gene Simmons. For me, at the bottom of the ivory tower looking up, it's very much alive.
And very much alive for me too. So, okay. So you mentioned that you had bands that you could mention, and so why not give them some love? Maybe some people will listen to us and they will go say, hey, I heard this band. So we all talk about Greta Van Fleet and blah, blah, blah. So let's move on from them. Give me like 3 bands that not only my fans should go listen to, but I should definitely go check out by the time we're done today.
Admiral Sir Cloudesley Shovel from London, England.
Okay.
They are incredible 3-piece band. They sound like Sir Lord Baltimore, Blue Cheer, Motorhead, all wrapped up in one. They sound like, I'm drawing a blank as to what other bands they sound like. But if you can, long name, Admiral Sir Cloudesley Shovel from London, England. They're on Rise Above Records. Another band from Rome, Italy, Judah, spelled Giuda. They play, I guess the first band that would come to mind would be like Sweet, that kind of very, very, very juicy pop rock, just rock and roll. It's great. It's great music. Another band, I believe they're from Wisconsin, Radkey, Radkey, another 3-piece band, very Misfits influenced. I love it. I love that.
Here, I'll throw one out. Why not, since we're playing?
Yeah.
Not super old, only about 10 years old, but Imperial State Electric from Sweden. What a great
I love that band.
Right? I mean, that is a great band. And since I'm a Kiss fan, they on occasion do Kiss covers on their albums and live, so it's a little added bonus for Kiss fans. But yeah, right?
Yeah, Nicky Anderson on guitar and vocals is also in a newer rock band called Lucifer, where he plays drums.
Yes.
And of course he's in the Helicopters, as we all know. Imperial State Electric, a great band.
Yeah, absolutely. So, throughout your career, you, of course, are a musician and you do the podcasting and you do the writing. You've written for all kinds of different, articles for all kinds of different outlets. Where do you see yourself going in the future? Do you continue doing sort of these 3 things, or is there one that gives you more satisfaction? Is there, when you write a song, is that the same thing as writing an article? Is it the same creative energy? Is it the same creative outlet? Is it the same satisfaction? Or do you see yourself more of a songwriter who has writes articles on this? Sort of, where do you see yourself artistically in these different endeavors?
I'm just a guy in a band, so I would say more of like music. The writing came out of just sheer boredom in dressing rooms and a lot of hurry up and wait at clubs, and I had nothing else to do. And so I just started writing on my laptop, and I do have a very similar feeling when I write an article that I think is pretty good, that I like, that I'm satisfied with, and send off to my editors, the same way when we come up with a good song. But still, nothing beats writing a song that is really, really good, or at least you think so. Nothing really kind of beats that feeling.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to Jim Valance the other day, and he was relaying a story of how they wrote Summer of '69, and just hearing him talk about it, sort of makes you giddy because you can just sort of sense the excitement and the Kiss Army and Kiss. Let me get to that because you are known as a Kiss fan. I'm known as a Kiss fan. There is all kinds of great stuff going on, but let's start with the End of the Road tour. It is on right now. What is sort of your take on things going on in Kiss world and this End of the Road tour? Do you think it is the end? Do you think it should have been with some of the older members? Just your general sort of overview on Kiss.
Yeah, I'm very, very outspoken about Kiss, and it's only because I'm a huge fan. Like, sometimes it gets mistaken for me being just like a hater, but it's only because as a huge lifetime Kiss fan, I feel like it's not my fandom isn't blind. I can't just, like every single thing they do. I mean, what kind of, who wants that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very outspoken. I think the End of the Road 3-year tour, if I'm not mistaken, is I wish they have like all the money they need. I kind of wish that Eric and Tommy took on new personas. I just like new personas in the Kissery, in the Kiss world. I'm not really for them taking on Peter and Ace's makeup, but I'm not the leaders of the band. I am Team Paul. I think Paul carries himself with the most class out of all of them. I guess there's some crazy infighting between Ace and Gene recently.
Yeah, which is glorious. But let me just say one thing about the makeup. And, I agree that maybe they should have changed it, then. But there is identifiable. I mean, just because, for example, the Toronto Maple Leafs get a new hockey player, it shouldn't mean that they should change the jerseys. And I sort of see it that way. Once you have an identifiable brand and people know those 4 makeup designs, it's sort of an inconvenient truth that, okay, that has to be the face of the band. You can't just, put water in a Coke bottle and call it, you sort of have to show what the brand is. So would I have preferred it personally? Sure, but I can't begrudge it because it just makes sense from the visual. And a casual fan and a guy watching whatever CNN and sees a picture, they don't know who they are. They just see those faces and go, oh, yeah, I recognize that.
Well, I would agree with you on that. However, Kiss never stuck to that story when Peter left the band and Eric Carr came in as the Fox. So Kiss set the precedent for new members, new makeup. I'm just following what they set.
Right.
So and with the Ink Warrior too. So that's all I'm saying. If they're in the makeup era, like Bruce Kulick, he doesn't have to become, the Falcon, or I should say the
puppy dog.
Astronaut.
No, but when you think about
it,
they did change the makeup, and it was their most unsuccessful years. I mean, if you look at 82, 83, or 81, 82, they weren't selling anything. It was. But was it the makeup, or was it just their place in time? It was fatigue. It was fatigue. It was fan fatigue. I mean,
yeah. Plus, Creatures of the Night is amazing.
Oh, absolutely glorious. And by the way, it's funny, while all this Ace and Gene stuff has been going on, I've been emailing with Vinnie Vincent, and it's been quite an entertaining kind of thing to go. Just back to Danko Jones here, and I'll get back to Kiss in a second. You, of course, are going to be I'm going to go back and forth. You, of course, are doing the Megadeth cruise. Or the Mega Cruise, as they have it branded. Talk to me about that opportunity, because the band, you have had incredible opportunities. I first saw you open up for Guns N' Roses in, I guess it was 2008, right? 2009, 2008?
2010.
2010. Yeah. Oh, that's right, because it wasn't. It was at the Montreal Forum. Bell Center in 2010.
Right. Yeah.
So, you had that opportunity to open up for this sort of big comeback tour at the time, and you've got now this Megadeth cruise. So talk to me about these opportunities, but particularly being on this Megadeth cruise, being invited by the Megadeth camp. That is a nice sort of nod of recognition. Talk to me what fans can expect, and what do you think you can expect for being sort of on a boat with fans and playing?
Well, we did a boat cruise before in 2014 on the Motorboat Motorhead cruise.
Oh, that's true.
And lots of bands that I like were on that as well. This mega cruise, Megadeth cruise, the mega cruise, it looks like it's going to be amazing. It's a lot of bands that I'm a fan of, and we're going to set sail together out there. And I can't wait to, as a fan, to just watch some of these bands like Armored Saint, Metal Church. So it's going to be fun.
Oh, it's going to be great. Where do we go from here? I know you've got some touring coming up in the U.S., but what are sort of the plans moving forward in, once the album comes out in April? What's sort of the summer schedule for Danko?
Well, our summer is a lot of festivals in Europe. They're being announced kind of weekly. So that's going to take up the 3 months, June, July, August. We're going to do some more North American dates in the fall, and then we're going to end the year off with a major city European tour, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot of touring this year once the album comes out.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So, and then let me talk to you about making albums in the sense that how important is it to put together a cohesive piece with 10, 11, 12 tracks? Is that something that is still important in today's marketplace, or can you sort of just rely on making sort of a 3-song EP or put out a single? Is it still important to have an album?
Yeah, this is a discussion that I've had. I can't lie. We've talked about stuff like that. But for me, personally speaking, I need to, in order to get my teeth into it, it's got to be an album. We got to be working on a real album. It's just, I'm just, if you want to call me old school that way, because I guess like 2 minutes ago it became old school, but up until I don't know, even this record, you work on a record. You finish that whole record, and then you call the singles from whatever the record is. I guess some bands are just working on EPs or singles and throwaway cuts and releasing them that way. But for me, rock and roll has always been album oriented. So that's how I get to know a band, from the album itself. And even though, there's some albums by bands I'm fans of where a lot of the cuts were throwaways, it still never made me any less of a fan of them.
Right.
So I come from that tradition, and for our band, I would like it to continue. However, if the industry moves in a certain direction, there's no way you can fight it. Like there's just no way people could keep, record stores open the way they used to be open. And there's no way that bands who signed with record companies could, have all the money they needed to, promote the record like they used to. It's just time and technology move on. And if that happened, I guess we'd have to change our ways. But personally, I like an album.
Do you approach the songwriting process and the songs as 11 individual songs and they're, with single potential, or do you see the 11 songs all having to work together where there needs to be an ebb and flow? There has to be the fast one and the slow one and the this. Is it one piece, or is it 11 singular pieces just stuck together?
Well, yeah, both. We work on each song. The way we write songs, we're not thinking about writing a hit song. It's only the aftermath and seeing, okay, which one has most single potential for people. And I don't pick them usually because I'm always wrong. I always pick, my favorite songs are never picked as singles. So I've given up years and years ago. I'm out of that discussion. I never really partake in it. That's for other people to decide.
Right.
So for me, each song is its own, and then we put them all together. But yes, you're right. When coming up with the album, sometimes it is like, yeah, we've got 3 fast ones, man. We need a mid-tempo one. So we'll go in and we'll kind of see. If we can, then we'll try. If we can't, then we just keep going. You know.
I'll have four fast ones, right? Well, whoever came up with Dance 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 and thought that should be released as a tease, brilliant, because it's a fun song.
There you go. Another thing where when they brought that up, I said, really? So I'm the last guy.
Yeah.
I'm very particular with songs, and I love that song, but it's just I'm just never right.
You should just go to the back of the bus and let the drummer decide from now on. For the podcast, you have, of course, your own podcast. It is doing quite well. Talk to me about getting into that, and what is sort of the hope for the podcast? Is it just to have this avenue to every so often get out there and share some stories and share some jokes or whatever, or is there this other sort of, I want to grow it into the next big thing, and I want to be a whatever. I want to take over radio. What's sort of the podcast? Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, not at all. I've been doing this podcast since 2011, so I've been doing it for 8 years now. And if I had any aspirations to segue into some other career, radio or otherwise, I would have done it a long time ago. No, it's, again, like the writing, it was a chance for me to kill some time, busy myself when there's a lot of downtime. And to be honest with you, in all honesty, be a little more social than I was, because I have a tendency to just be a hermit on the road and off the road. I don't really socialize too much outside of our circle of, band and crew. So you got me a chance to catch up with friends and bands or friends at home even. And since then, in the last 8 years, I've had, wonderful experiences doing the podcast with people I would never have met or talked to if it wasn't the excuse to do the podcast. So I'm glad that it's around, and I do it at my own pace, usually once every 2 weeks. I know people have told me, you got to do it more often for more listeners. You'll lose listeners if it's not regular, and I don't care. I do it for me, and I do it when I can. So, every 2 weeks, that's what I adhere to, is best as possible, schedule permitting. And it's with people that I have a connection with, whether it's that I'm a fan of theirs or we're friends or both. I'll have them on. And then we can talk, and it's just a discussion because I'm genuinely interested in that person.
Yeah, and I've been told the same thing. You got to do it more often. Keep it going.
Yeah.
From the podcasting position, and I've heard your show, and you've done interviews, and they sound great. You did one with Duff McKagan. I'm trying to think when that was. Was that recently?
I've done it, twice. He's been on the podcast twice, yeah.
Sounded great. Duff's, we gotta love Duff. Are you comfortable though? Because you just said you're a hermit. Are you comfortable on the other side, like today, being the interview subject, or is that something that sort of is a little more challenging for you with that tendency to be a hermit?
No, I do enjoy it only if the interview is with someone who, at least in this day and age where, Wikipedia is at your fingertips, they know what they're talking about. And obviously this interview is going, I'm enjoying it because you know your stuff. So you'd be surprised how many people go to. Oh,
I'm not surprised. I know exactly. I was.
Yeah, we go so far as to schedule an interview together. It's enough time to do a Wikipedia search on me. I'm not asking you to be my fan. I'm just asking you to just read up on who you're talking to, whether it's me or any person. And so a lot of it is just very shallow, and there's no depth to the interviews, and it's fine, but sometimes if there's a weird, odd question, I'll react. If I already know that they didn't do any effort or research into the interview, because that's what I do, being on the other side.
Well, I hope there was some depth today. I mean, I did have a
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is great.
I had a longer arc in terms of the Kiss world, but I moved on from it. But it's just funny because you're very right. I was backstage with Bryan Adams the other day, and the local radio station came in, and they had a 20-minute interview set up, and as they were setting up the cameras, the presenter came over to me and they said, "Well, what should I ask him?" And I'm like, "Your interview's starting in 3 minutes, and you have no clue."
Wow.
Like it's Bryan Adams, and I don't. In fact, I don't care if it's Danko Jones or Bryan Adams. You owe it the respect of putting in the work. And
that's what I feel too. Yeah.
I think it's important to put in listen, like you, I would imagine. There are times when you interview people that you may not be very familiar with, you may not even like their music, but it should never be about you, because the fan tuning in today is not here to listen to Mitch. He's here to listen to Danko because he's a fan of Danko's. And I owe them the respect to say, here's, I did the best I could. At least I looked stuff. But you know what? I like Danko. I'm telling you, that Dance 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 song, I've been listening to it all day. It is fantastic.
Oh, cool. Thanks, man. Thank you.
I love it. And I love your take on all the Kiss stuff. And hopefully the Kiss thing will end appropriately, and all this nonsense that is going on or has gone on in the media recently with wives of former guitar players throwing mud will give way to reason and sanity.
But isn't the end of the road tour kicking off today or tomorrow or something?
Well, yes, when we're recording it is, but by the time this airs, it'll be 3 weeks old. But yeah.
Right. So it just kind of makes sense that they need to be in the news on any level. So there's some sort of calculation, I would say, on someone's part there.
Oh, it's absolutely you said it yourself. You wrote that article where you talked about smoke and mirrors and stuff. It is all smoke and mirrors. So, when Kiss comes out and there's a little bit of incident or a little bit of whatever that's been going on, it really is to get people talking about it and interested about. It's about buzz. Everything is about buzz. The Danko Jones podcast is about buzz. The Mitch Lafon podcast is about buzz. Your album, and let's mention it again, Rock Supreme, it's about buzz. And and sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, but as long as there's buzz, everybody's happy.
You're right.
And and anyway, I wish you all the best on Rock Supreme. I've only had a chance to hear 2 tracks from it for now, and I've loved both. And hopefully by the time it comes out in April, my listeners will go check it out, because it is honest rock and roll. I mean, is that a fair description? Honest rock and roll?
Yeah, it's made by people who want to play only hard rock music. So I would say yes, it is.
And I'll finish on this. Will you be in Montreal at any time soon?
We hope to be, absolutely, this year, if possible. I don't know offhand our schedule for the entire year, but hopefully we will be. We should be. We're overdue for a Montreal show.
I would love to see a Montreal show, and I'd actually love to see you at something like Heavy Montreal, where you could get a chance to be in front of 15 or 20,000 people and just say, "Hey, this is what we've got, and hope you enjoy it." And Danko, an absolute pleasure, and it always it's been fun.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks a lot. It's great to be on the show.
Yeah, and I'll have it up in a couple of weeks, and it'll be good, and I'll send it out to all the media, to all the different blabbermouths and stuff like that. And
cool. All right, cool. Yeah, I know of your show for quite a while, so it's good to be on it.
You're listening to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Rock Talk.